Chicago, Cup Show with Irv Kupcinet.
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Lively Art, 1 hour of unrehearsed and spontaneous conversation. We have some delightful guests that I'm sure you're going to enjoy because I'm looking forward to this one myself especially. We have two athletes, best known perhaps by their nicknames Bubba and OJ, who need no other identification. Both are doing and enjoying very successful careers other than the sports world from which they have now retired. And you'll meet a movie maker who is starting a new film on the life of the automobile pioneer Henry Ford. You'll meet the world's greatest drummer, without a doubt. That's not only my opinion, but that's his opinion, too. And you'll also meet an outstanding author who's written a book about agents. And everybody on our show is relations. Give our best to Nicole.
That's your word. Fellas,
fine. Thank you, OJ. Just slip out and we won't say a word. Thank you so much.
I'm going to do some commentaries over in England.
Yeah. Buddy, let's turn to the world's greatest drummer.
Where? Oh. What?
Drummers, you always say, are really the leaders of the orchestra. You put down the orchestra leaders. You say they don't mean a damn thing. The drummer is the guy who runs the show.
Who follows the band leader with a baton?
Nobody.
So why does he sit down and give the band a chance?
He's only up there for show?
I think so.
Is that true in the symphonic orchestra conductors, too?
No, I think they have a lot more to be contended with 90 musicians. As a matter of fact, a week ago I was in London. I did a concert with the Royal Philharmonic. 90 musicians at Royal Festival Hall. One of the most exciting evenings I've ever had.
Who was conducting, buddy?
A gentleman from Washington, Ernie something, I can't think of his last name, a very young conductor. And he was a guest conductor for the orchestra. Marvelous.
You didn't pay any attention to him either, apparently. You don't know his name.
No, I don't know his name because he only conducts the two pieces that I play with the orchestra. I have a concert arrangement of West Side Story, which is just the opposite of the jazz thing that we do with my band. And I have another introduction thing on Strike Up the Band.
Let me ask you, buddy, is your form, jazz and so forth, going by in the view of the popularity of rock and roll? Are we losing jazz, one of the great art
I don't think
forms?
so. I think perhaps we're losing some of the musicians, but I don't think the form, the art form of jazz, will ever leave us. I use my band as a perfect example. We're on the road 9 months every year, Cup. And we play mostly high schools, mostly colleges, and concert halls. We don't play any hotels, we don't play dances. And we do capacity business, and the audience, mostly from early teens to the people who remember the Tommy Dorsey Band. So I don't think there's anything discouraging about jazz. I think if we spend as much time, if the people behind the networks spend as much time with jazz musicians and jazz music as they do with the rock and roll thing, the commercialism of rock and roll is really not music. When you look at some of MTV and you see...
It's not
mostly,
music.
It's not music, definitely. It's a show. Things burning, people dancing, walking, running. That the music is a secondary art. If they would present it as a show instead of saying, this is music TV, I think you might find more bands like mine and more musicians like the jazz musician getting the same kind of exposure. It's a very unfortunate situation.
Going back to your youth, is it true, buddy, that you were the second highest paid child star?
Yeah, when I was in vaudeville with my
Jackie Coogan
parents.
or
Jackie Coogan. Because I was in vaudeville with my parents and actually started playing drums when I was about 2 years old. And I was in vaudeville up until the time I was 15. And I was the second highest paid child star in the history of the business.
What did you do in vaudeville, buddy?
I sang, I danced, and played drums, Brian, all my life. I didn't get into jazz until I was I started listening to jazz when I was 15.
Yeah.
I got into jazz when I was 17. I had my first job in New York City at the Hickory House when I was 18. And I've been very fortunate throughout my life playing with the best jazz musicians that the world has ever known, from Count Basie to Lester Young, Charlie Parker, all the great, truly great jazz artists. And I've been involved with these people all my life. And it's 55 years later, and I still have what I think is one of the best jazz bands ever. And I'm surrounded with people half my age, most of them, and they play with the authority and with the sensitivity of a kid that's been playing jazz all his life. Most of my guys are in their very early 20s, and they're fantastic musicians, writers and players.
Well, let me get this straight. Is jazz still popular, or
Very.
is it fading in view of the competition from
No, I
rock
don't
and
think
roll?
it's fading. I think there's always an elite audience. There's always an audience that wants to hear something a little bit better. And there's just so much that you can view. There's just so many times you can listen to Lionel Richie, and there's so many times you can listen to Sinatra. There's enough in between. There's enough of an audience. We just completed a 2-year tour with Frank Sinatra. And his audience, combined with my audience, was a very youthful, very energetic performance. It wasn't a nostalgic trip at all. So that it encompasses the entire spectrum of audiences, from very early kids to the guys that remember. It's a marvelous thing.
You mentioned Frank Sinatra. Didn't he once back your orchestra?
Frank backed my original band in 1947.
Yeah.
And then at the end of 1940...
Was that a money-making effort?
No, I went completely. I lost over $280,000 in the first 2 years of the band.
And what did he lose?
He lost $50,000. And in 1950, I reorganized my big band again after being with all the small bands. And that was also very unsuccessful. But I didn't lose quite as much money. And I went back with Harry James. I stayed with Harry James for 6 years. And in 1966, I'd had enough of playing the lounge rooms in Las Vegas, and I had enough of playing the same kind of music night after night after night for people who drank and not necessarily listen to music. So in '66, I organized another big band. The advice was ridiculous, you know, who wants a big band? You're going to lose everything you've ever had, blah, blah, blah. It's now 1985, and the band is doing just fantastic work, recording. We just completed our own television show. We did a 2-hour show for cable television, which will be on the end of July. We just recorded a compact disc, and the band is on its way. We're on tour now for the next 3 months.
Do you remember those, well, last time I saw you in London, buddy, you gave me some records, Norman Grant's, I think, Jazz
at the Philharmonic. Yes.
Somebody offered me £100 each. I mean,
Really?
that's...
Well, they're collector's items because the people on those albums
I know.
are, you know, from Oscar Peterson
Giants.
to Lionel Hampton, Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis. You had the absolute top cream choice people that ever played music.
Yeah.
So they're certainly worth £100. I'll buy them for £100.
I mean, that answers you in a way. I mean, there's still a lot of people out there who are absolutely rabid about jazz still, you know.
Well, our situation in London, we go to London every year.
Yeah.
We play 4 weeks throughout England, and we do a sellout tour. I've been going over there for 17 years, every year, and Brian will tell you, we get to Ronnie Scott's club, we're sold out 2 weeks in advance, we're sold out for the time that we're there, and my entire tour is a sellout.
What's the most unusual place you've taken your band?
Chicago.
Touche. Now let me ask you the question.
Go
What's
right
the most
ahead.
unusual place you've taken your band?
I think India.
India.
We did a State Department tour in 61, 62. And it was, I had the small jazz band. And we went over there for the State Department. We played all through Calcutta, New Delhi, Madras.
What kind of reception?
Fantastic. Fantastic. We played Afghanistan. We played Kabul, the major city. We played the thing called the Jeshn Fair. We had 30,000 people coming back from the Afghan-Pakistan border, sitting on horses, carrying long rifles, and still wearing turbans. It was a scary experience. 30,000 people in a park for the concert. We went to Cambodia. We were in Phnom Penh. We were in Bangkok. We were Udon. We went up through the mountains and through the jungles of Cambodia. And I think that was probably the most unusual tour. But the response was the same as it would be in New York City or Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Great.
You have an agent now?
Oh, yeah, sure.
You have an agent?
I have 3 agents.
You have an agent, Bubba?
Yes.
Whitney Stone can tell us about agents and how they behave, and our agents largely...